Chapter 1, First Steps. Mordu's Lux, the world of decay. This was the name of the world where I was born, a place of death, pain, and darkness. Billions of demons suffered on this desolate world, on this god-forsaken hellscape. There were no stars in the sky, there was no light. The only thing keeping us from total darkness was the flickering heart. No one knew what it was. Well, maybe some of the kings did, but the fledglings, such as myself, would never dream of understanding. All I knew was that it flickered with a red glow, and that it shook the very sky each time it did. It was also the only reason we demons could survive here. From the flickering heart, a waterfall of deep crimson blood flowed, and from this blood, I was born. I came to this world like every other demon, by dragging my newly formed body from one of the many blood oceans. That was where my story began, in the ocean of Relictus. My vision flickered, my eyes burned, and all I could see was black. My body ached, and it felt like it was being ripped apart and put back together. Where am I? I felt as if I was floating, or maybe sinking. I couldn't really tell. Everything was a blur, and my senses had abandoned me. The smell was rancid and repulsive, it reeked of death. I was in some liquid, but without being able to see, I wasn't sure what it was. All I had left were my instincts, and they were screaming at me. I needed to live. If I didn't move, I would die. I would be devoured before I could even try to live. The liquid I was immersed in began to swirl. A force was trying to pull me deeper. I tried to focus and search for a way out. My eyes unblurred, and my surroundings grew clearer. Everything was red. I was in a deep crimson liquid, and it seemed to go on forever. I looked down, and all I saw was darkness. There was no floor in sight, and the depth may have been endless. I looked around, trying to orient myself in a way that would give me a better chance at escaping the red liquid. Instead, I saw shapes. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of shapes. Shapes. No, those weren't shapes. Those were like me. I sensed we were alike. Were they my family? I found the closest one to me and observed it closely. It was built like a beast, with 3 tails that broke through the water with ease, flowing up and down to keep it stationary. It had 2 crystal black horns that curled from its forehead. They seemed almost unbreakable. The beast had 4 hoofed legs, and its torso was giant. This was my brother. I looked at it and then at myself. We had nothing in common. Now that I realized it, we were all different. Some were built like birds, cats, dogs, or hippos. Some even looked like me, but they were rare, and many had obsidian horns while I had nothing. We were all unique. I turned my gaze back toward the bull-like creature. I observed it, trying to see what it would do. Suddenly, my senses screamed. Fear gripped my heart, and my entire being told me to run. I looked around, trying to figure out what was so terrifying, but I couldn't find anything. My bull brother seemed to have sensed whatever it was, too, since he began to swim up as fast as possible. A giant tide hit me from below, and as if something were sucking in all the liquid, I began to be dragged deeper. I pushed my legs and arms to the limit and began to swim up. I gave it everything I had, but the current was so strong. It felt like I was getting ripped apart. I looked around, hoping for someone to help me. Unfortunately, all I saw were several of my siblings in the same situation. We were all getting pulled deeper and deeper into the liquid, our effort almost meaningless. I pushed with everything I had, flailing my arms and legs, trying anything to get away from the sense of death. My ears rang, and the sound of my beating heart blocked out my muffled screams. I felt my arms and legs stop as my body gave out, and I sank toward my almost guaranteed death. I closed my eyes, letting the darkness engulf me. I went numb, and everything went silent. No heartbeat, no ringing, no sound of death. Only the feeling of getting pulled deeper. I accepted it. What a pitiful life. I really hadn't accomplished anything. I drifted deeper into the liquid, my mind becoming fuzzy. Maybe I would get another chance. Maybe I could be born somewhere nicer next time. Was there a next time? I opened my eyes. My skin was so smooth, so shiny, so pure. My body was slim and beautiful. I wasn't tall, but I certainly wasn't short. My white hair flowed in the liquid. How was it not red? How did it keep its pearl white color? I didn't care. It was so beautiful. I was beautiful. My life was beautiful, and I deserved to have a chance. My body felt broken, but I was not going to give up on my life. I would fight for it until the bitter end. The pull grew more powerful. I fought with everything I had, and I kept pushing even though I was still going lower into the liquid. The force grew stronger and stronger until I was finally low enough to see what was pulling me down. The sight was maddening. It was a creature with a long body and a mouth the size of a black hole. This beast was trying to devour us all. It sucked in thousands of gallons of this red liquid, trying to pull my siblings and me down with it. It had pure black eyes. It was almost like staring into a pit of pure darkness, but that wasn't its most terrifying feature. Those were its teeth, the size of trees and as black as the night sky. This beast was on another level. Growing out of its head were horns, massive horns that could pierce the heavens. On its body were tentacles. Fucking tentacles. They were giant, and there had to be dozens of them. Why in hell did a monster of this size need tentacles? I tried to get away from this thing, but I couldn't escape the whirlpool it was creating. I looked down and saw my bull brother. He was closer to the monster than I was. Once he was within a few dozen meters of the beast, it began to move. Its mouth closed, and a hole in its head opened up. The pull disappeared almost instantly, and I felt like I could finally move freely. With no more pull, I began to swim away from the beast. I knew if I stayed, I would die. I swam as fast as I could, trying to cover as much distance as possible. I looked down and saw my siblings starting to do the same. We all began to move away from the horror below. I saw my bull brother realize, a little too late, that one of the Leviathan's tentacles had reached out toward him. He was too slow to avoid it. The tentacle completely ensnared my bull brother. I looked at my brother and felt pity. We made eye contact, and the fear in his face was painful to see. He was just like me. He had just been born in this world, and there was nothing he could do. This place was truly unfair. I felt a connection, maybe hostile, maybe friendly, but we were still connected. I watched as the tentacle wrapped around him and squeezed shut, crushing him instantly. My bull brother was dead. The black, bumpy tentacle brought his corpse toward the hole that had opened on the monster's head. The hole was filled with razor-sharp teeth, which began to spin ferociously. My brother's body was dropped into the hole and shredded instantly, completely devoured by the giant beast. I watched in shock and fear. I was terrified by the beast's brutality. I needed to escape. I needed to survive. I turned and swam at speeds I didn't know I could reach, and I looked around and saw my siblings try to get away as well. They were all swimming away from the incoming tentacles. I watched in horror as tentacles crushed more of my brothers and sisters. Around me was a sister with feathered wings and a beak on her face. She was so unique, and just like that, she was squished into a bloody pulp. Another was a brother who looked like me, but instead of white hair, he had black. He was tall and very handsome. However, he did have a pair of horns growing out of his head, along with wings sprouting from his back. Why must he die? The tentacle grabbed his leg, crushing it instantly. He screamed, but the liquid muffled his voice. He stopped swimming, being unable to focus with the immense pain he was experiencing. 3 other tentacles grabbed him, ripping him apart from all sides. His blood poured into the liquid, mixing in with the red. I saw his organs rupture and break as he was severed, his intestines spilling into the water. His heart was flung around and floated past me as I tried to escape. I saw tentacles fly by, attacking my siblings, and one of them knocked me aside while it went after a dog-like brother. I felt something, a throbbing pain from the impact, and I started to feel dizzy. I looked down and saw something sticking out of my leg. A bone, my bone. Fuck, that hurt. I bit down, trying to distract myself from the pain. I braced myself and kept swimming. Why? Why did I have to endure this? This was unfair. What did I do to deserve this torture? I swam farther and farther up, but it felt as if there was no end. My family was dwindling around me, and I was suffering from my injury. Another sister above me had her legs ripped off, leaving only her torso to flail around. Her agony was unreal. She floated there, not dying, flinging her arms up and down as blood and guts spilled out from where her legs used to be. She was in my way as I kept swimming up, and she grabbed my wrist. She looked at me with beautiful red eyes, but what lay behind them was fear, pain, and madness. I tried to push her off of me, but she wouldn't let go. Her nails dug into my arm with an unnatural force. Let go, please let go, it hurt. I looked at her with horror in my eyes. She was trying to get me killed. I kicked at what I could reach. The only thing I was making contact with was her stomach. She tried to scream in pain, but the red liquid flooded her mouth. She gripped me tighter, not relenting at all. I didn't know what to do. If I stayed here, I would end up dead, or worse, like her. I needed to get away. I used all my strength and brought my hands to her head and clamped down. I pushed my thumbs into her gorgeous crimson eyes with all my force. She began to squirm and kick, trying to get me away from her, but I wouldn't budge. She tried to kill me, so I had to kill her first. Her muffled screams began to emit from her mouth, but I paid them no mind. I pushed harder, begging for her to die. I felt her eyes begin to squish and spasm. Blood was running from her eye sockets, but she still held on to me. Please die, why won't you die? She tried fighting back, but with no legs and while being in so much pain, there was nothing she could do. She punched me in the stomach with her free hand, but it had no force behind it. I pushed farther into her skull, her body spasming even more. Pop! My thumbs collapsed into her skull as I crushed her eyes. Her grip loosened and finally disappeared. Her body drifted down into the depths, where it was snatched up by a tentacle and finally devoured. She was dead. Her suffering was over. I stared back into the abyss, my mind struggling to understand what I had just done. My hands were bathed in blood and brains. Her retinas had been completely severed when I pulled away. Pieces of flesh stuck to me like glue, only finally drifting into darkness when I wiped them off. I had just murdered one of my sisters, a being who was similar to me, who was born like me. Why did I have to do that? Was there something else I could have done? Could I have saved her? The questions echoed in my head, and guilt dug into my very soul. No, it was her or me. She was already lost to madness. I couldn't have saved her, even if I tried. I gave her peace and helped her escape this hell. I turned away from the scene and fled once again. I swam faster and faster, getting farther away from the beast down below. With each stroke of my arms, I advanced through the crimson tides. I felt as if I was swimming for hours, barely avoiding tentacles that came to take more of my family. There were only a few of us now, down to a few hundred. We had started in the thousands, and now we were all that was left. I advanced, swimming by broken bodies and shattered minds. I passed a brother on my left who wasn't dead, but who had lost the will to advance. He was drowning in his own madness. He floated still, knees cradled into his chest, tears flowing freely from his eyes. He sat there silently sobbing, eyes bloodshot, teeth clattering, and shivering uncontrollably. What a terrible sight. He was throwing away the life he had just been cursed with. I looked back into the abyss. Tentacles still came and went, but their numbers were dwindling. I had time. I kicked back and turned toward my brother. I approached him fast, trying to reach him before the next wave of tentacles came for us. I reached his quaking body and squeezed his shoulder. He looked up at me. He was smaller than me, and his face was different. He was dog-like. Golden brown fur flowed beautifully along his face. He was cold, so very cold to the touch. I brought my hands down and interlocked them with his. They were so soft, yet damp from the red liquid we were submerged in. He looked so afraid. I tried to pull him up, tried to make him move forward. He didn't budge. He pulled away from my grasp and shook his head. I looked at him. I was confused. Why wouldn't he come with me? I pulled at him again, pleading with him using my eyes. I pulled and pulled, but he wouldn't move. I grew frustrated and struck him hard in the chest. My brother yelped, yet he didn't strike back. He stood there and accepted his beating. I screamed a silent scream as he drifted away from me. The last thing I saw was a broken smile before he was dragged to his death and taken from the world too early. What could he have accomplished if he had a chance to grow? What an unfair world I was born into. I looked down at my bone-pierced leg and at the corpses of my fallen brothers and sisters. I looked back on my eventful but short life. I remembered the squishing and collapse of my sister's eyes, the smile of my dog brother, how his tears drenched his gorgeous fur. I envisioned my bull brother and how he seemed to have so much hope, but also the fear he experienced before being crushed into a bloody pulp. This world had no mercy. There were no friends to be made, and here only the strong survived. I would survive. I swore it upon my fallen brothers and sisters. I would grow stronger and carry your memories with me. I pushed forward, stroking upward through the liquid, passing by more corpses and broken minds. I observed the pain around me and added it to my anger. Tears flowed from my face. The pain of loss and injury almost made it impossible to think straight. Reaching out, I breached the waves. My eyes observed the sight in front of me. For as far as the eye could see, it was red. This liquid was blood. I was swimming in an ocean of blood. I turned my head, looking for something, anything, and to my dismay, all I could observe was a giant 100-meter cliff. I turned my head around again and saw some of my siblings start to emerge from the blood. I watched as they took in the same sights as I had. I watched as despair began to plaster itself on all of their faces. There was nothing we could do. This ocean was endless, and there was no way any of us could scale this wall. I watched a sister with wings take flight into the air, but before she could even make it halfway, one of the giant tentacles pierced the water and rose ominously into the sky. Its speed was astounding, even out of the water. It reached up and flung itself at my flying sister. The tentacle grabbed at her, completely halting her ascent. With her in its grasp, it reeled back and then accelerated toward the wall. I heard her scream, not one muffled by the blood, a real, ear-shattering scream. She was slammed into the wall with immeasurable force, her body rupturing instantly. I closed my eyes as blood fell from the sky. The rocky cliff where she had been was now just a splatter of blood and guts. I watched her blood rain, falling upon my head, drenching me and filling the ocean with more innocent blood. The tentacle swayed in the sky and began to descend. It fell toward the ocean, and before it hit the water, the sky brightened. Red lightning streaked across the sky, and with it, the world shook. The tentacle struck the water, sending waves of blood rippling. They were massive, rivaling even the rock cliff. I looked up in fear as a wave brought tremendous force upon me. It pulled me back into the blood, plunging me back into the hell that was this ocean. I was tossed around and rammed into the jagged wall. I felt a rock pierce my back, and I cried out in pain. Hot blood poured from the wound, and I felt bones crack and splinter inside of me. My already broken leg began to bend unnaturally. The rock dug deeper, ravaging more of my body. The pain was unimaginable. My consciousness was fading, and my movements began to falter. Was I going to die after all of this? This world truly was unfair. And everything went black. I felt as if the world itself were crushing me. My eyes opened, and everything was blurry. My back and my leg were in so much pain, but I was alive. I hadn't died after all. I was alive. How was I alive? I was certain that I had been crushed, that I had died. I had felt my bones shatter, my body being torn apart. Yet I awoke on top of the unclimbable cliff, alive and kicking. I rolled off my back and onto my stomach, and I pushed with my bruised arms. I heard my bones crack and felt blood oozing from my open wounds. I buckled and bent, but I fought through it. I was so abused. My strength had abandoned me, and all I had left was my willpower. I urged my body to advance. I shifted my weight and brought myself to my knees. I gasped for air, coughing from the overexertion. I wheezed, fighting for every breath. I covered my mouth with my hand and coughed into it. As I pulled it away, blood bleached my pale skin. I turned away, feeling the urge to vomit. The remaining blood left my lungs as I gagged and spluttered. As I caught my breath, I steeled myself for the next challenge. My mind hardened, and I propped myself up higher, sitting on only one knee now. I pushed with my right foot, driving it into the gravel beneath my feet. I pushed up. The ground shifted from the force. The sound of pebbles sliding filled the silence. I propelled up and stood on both of my feet. The sharp rocks dug into my soles, causing more agonizing pain to enter my body. I fought through the feeling. I wobbled and was lightheaded. Standing after enduring so much was so nauseating. I took in a deep breath and focused on my survival. Looking ahead, I brought one foot in front of the other. Where would I go? I wasn't too sure, but I knew that forward was the only way to live. So I walked, taking my first steps on the land of the world of decay. Chapter 2, The Beach of Relictus. My first steps were piercing torment, each one a fresh stab of pain. Making it out of the blood ocean was a triumph in every way. Even walking felt like a spectacle. However, the Reaper still held the reins. Death was not far, but I wouldn't let it take me. A crimson trail followed behind me, each step adding more blood to the barren ground. The sounds of creaking and cracking bones filled the silence, lingering in the air after the massacre. It was agonizing, each step a marathon, each breath a stab to the chest. Scanning the desolate wasteland, I spotted more of my siblings in the distance. Their bodies varied in size, though most looked like me or were smaller. Clearly, the Leviathan had a preference for whom it devoured. A vision of my bull brother flashed through my mind. I chuckled, though not with joy. Only pain escaped my throat. Slowly, step by step, I walked toward my siblings. The land was rough, unfit for bare skin. Aside from my brothers and sister, nothing stood out. The wasteland seemed almost completely flat, broken only by a few jagged mountains and scattered rock formations around the area where I had awakened. A sister was the first I approached. She had flawless dark skin, so smooth. It must have felt like silk to the touch. Her face shone with a gloss that befitted divine beings. Her eyes were bright, as if a fire raged behind them. She smiled at me, a large, gorgeous smile, one that could make any man falter. Her dimples lifted her cheeks, highlighting her dark freckles. When I saw that smile, I couldn't contain myself any longer. Tears flowed from my eyes, a waterfall of pure emotion, pain, death, and unwanted burden. The taste of salt filled my mouth, my nose ran, and my vision blurred. Sobs broke the silence as my tears fell. My sister's smile vanished, her composure abandoning her at the sight of me. She began to cry as well, the trauma striking us both hard and relentlessly. I rubbed my eyes, trying to dry them, My face burned red, my eyes were swollen and puffy, and the salty liquid parched my mouth. I tried to stop crying, but the tears wouldn't stop. They did not obey my will. A laugh escaped me, a real, genuine laugh, simply because I couldn't stop crying. How could that be the reason for my first true laugh? Using the backs of my hands, I wiped my eyes again. After a long while, the tears finally slowed. With one last sniffle, I lifted my head and looked into my sister's blazing eyes. They held hope, pure, honest hope. Our gazes locked as we both tried to decide who would move first, but I acted before she could. I returned her smile with one of my own, not the biggest smile, but a true one. With it came a shift in mood. The air tensed, and the world seemed to freeze. My breathing grew shallow. Hopefully, I hadn't read the situation wrong. She stared at me, shock flickering in her eyes. Had I offended her? My smile faltered as she stepped closer. My thoughts spiraled. Her steps were slow and precise, as though she feared startling prey. My legs moved on instinct, backing away. With one large step, my ruined leg buckled, and I fell hard, yelping as fresh blood seeped from my wounds. I dragged myself back as quickly as I could, but her pace was more than enough to catch me. She dropped to her knees and extended her arms toward me. My shoulders jerked back, my eyes squeezed shut. I braced for pain, for my life to be torn away, for hands at my throat. But nothing came. Instead, her arms wrapped around me in an embrace. Warmth spread through my body, and my heart began to flutter. What was this feeling? She pulled me closer, her black hair falling across my vision. She smelled of death, but I didn't care. I wrapped my arms around her, returning the embrace. Our foreheads touched, her dark lips hovered close to mine. We sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity, wishing the moment would never end. "You're so pretty, sister," she whispered, her voice carrying a gentle ring that matched her face and soul. "Not compared to you," I replied, offering her my smile again. We stayed like that a little longer before she finally pulled away. She placed her hands on the gravel and rose effortlessly to her feet. Looking down at me, she offered that big, beautiful smile once more. Then she extended her glowing hand. I reached up and interlocked our fingers. Her touch was smooth, radiating warmth. She pulled and I braced. My arm cracked as she lifted me. My feet dug into the gravel, and my body spasmed from the strain of standing. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Relief washed over me. She hadn't killed me, though everything still hurt. My sister studied me with a complicated expression. She brought a hand to her chin, stroking it absently. Her mouth opened, then closed again, as though she were struggling to find the right words. "I feel connected to you," I said before she could speak. "We are sisters, right?" She stood silently for a moment, considering. Her expression remained blank. "Yes, I think we are." She smiled again, then frowned. "What can I call you, sister?" she asked. What a strange question. Wasn't being called sister enough? As I stared into her warm eyes and felt her smooth skin, I realized she wasn't just my sister. She was a unique being, unlike anyone else. Looking around, I saw all my siblings and how each was their own person. We may share the same race, but that does not make us identical. From a young, handsome brother who shared many characteristics with me to a horse-headed sister who could not have been more different, we were all distinct. We were blessed with our bodies and souls, and we should not be defined only as brother or sister. We should be allowed a choice in how we are defined. "I'm not sure. I don't know what I want to be called," I finally answered, a hint of uncertainty in my voice. "Sister is fine for now." My sister looked disappointed with my answer. Clearly, she had wanted something different. But she held her tongue, remaining silent even though she seemed ready to argue. We stared into each other's eyes, the awkwardness eating away at us. Around us, the wind gusted along the cliffside, blowing our hair in all directions. My other siblings began chatting among themselves, some breaking down just as I had. My family began to bond over shared trauma. The world had shifted from constant risk of death to an unsettling calm. Smiles filled the cliffside, and laughter echoed all around. Brothers and sisters united for the first time, we were all unique, yet no prejudices surfaced. The unnatural joy warmed my heart, easing some of the pain I was experiencing. I smiled once again. We were alive and together. Lifting my head, I gazed into the black void above. The sky was empty, nothing stirred there. I wondered why the ground was slightly illuminated when nothing in the sky emitted light. I bent down, another jolt of pain shooting through me. Placing my hand on the glowing rock, I expected to feel nothing unusual. My palm pressed against the rough gravel, scratching slightly. A faint warmth radiated from the ground. My hand reddened from the heat, and a glow seemed to run up my arm. As I focused, I felt a slight vibration beneath my fingers. Bewdump, bewdump, bewdump. The shaking was constant. The vibrations were weak, but they were there. It was like the beat of a heart. "Sister, come feel this." I waved, signaling for her to approach. Her eyes narrowed slightly, one eyebrow lifting. I waved again. Finally, she sighed and walked over, placing her hand on the gravel beside mine. "Do you feel it?" I asked, looking at her expectantly. "Yes, I do. What is it?" she pondered aloud. I lowered my head to the ground, pressing my ear to the earth. The warmth soothed my face, drying the tear stains beneath my eyes. Bewdump, badump. 3 seconds between each beat. Bewdump, badump. Now 2 seconds. Was I losing my mind, or was it getting faster? Bewdump, badump. 1 second. The ground shook harder. The tremble was becoming an earthquake. Badump, then silence. The shaking stopped. The heart stopped beating. My sister looked at me, and together we turned our gazes to the sky as a roar tore through the abyss. The wind shifted, the gentle breeze transforming into a whirlwind of rocks and pebbles. The darkness above began to glow red, and to my dismay, thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, of silhouettes filled the sky. They varied in size, their features abnormal, many resembling my animal-like siblings but far more grotesque. What were those beasts? The red light vanished suddenly, and what followed nearly made my ears bleed. Red lightning streaked across the sky, and the heavens trembled. Behind me, the ocean rose, waves crashing violently against the rocks below the cliff. Sounds of terror echoed from above. The monsters shrieked, their cries sending shivers down my spine. The lighting faded, just to be followed by another bolt that split the sky. The repulsive beasts were descending at speeds that rivaled the Leviathan's tentacles. I grabbed my sister's arm. "We need to run." I stepped forward, but more blood seeped from my leg. The already protruding bone shifted, cutting into flesh. Stumbling, I fell to my knees, a hoarse cry escaping my mouth. "Sister, you're hurt," she yelled, her dark lips trembling. "What should we do? Running isn't an option, not with you like this." My mind raced. I could barely stand, let alone escape the flying beasts. Ideas flashed in my mind, all ending in me and my sister being torn apart, ripped limb from limb, blood sucked dry. The horrid images made me gag. Standing still meant death by 100 monsters, and behind me, an ocean of blood filled with unimaginable horrors that could swallow us whole. The land was barren, with no haven of safety materializing in my vision. I screamed, my broken voice quivered. "I don't know, there's nowhere to go." My sister stared at me, eyes filled with fear, but behind them lay something else. She reached out and scooped my weakened body into her arms. She took off, sprinting as fast as she could. A crazed roar echoed behind us. My eyes darted toward the dread-inducing sound. The first monster touched down, shattering the ground instantly with its immense weight. It was a grotesque sight to behold. Its skin moved like water on its body, a liquid mesh of blood and tissue. Dark, empty sockets replaced its eyes, melting flesh falling from its face, bulging veins vibrating with each movement. A long, trunk-like nose sniffed at the air. Within seconds, the creature turned its head toward the nearest living person. It roared, a low, raspy scream. Broken teeth chattered, and its tongue split in two. The lack of skin revealed rotten bone, black saliva dripping from the holes in its jaw. The monster began to charge. The ground shook with each step, a raging mammoth of a beast charging at the nearest soul. A poor brother was its chosen prey. He tried to escape, tried to run, but it was no use. He just wasn't fast enough. The monster caught him with ease, knocking him onto the hard surface. It stood over him, staring at him with its empty sockets. My brother cried, tears ran down his face, and sobs echoed from where he lay. The monster didn't move, just stared. My brother tried to get up, but his attempt was futile. The instant he moved, the monster pounced, crushing his right arm instantly. The crunch of shattering bone made me cover my mouth. Blood soaked the place where his arm used to be, his shoulder spasmed, trying to coagulate as fast as possible. His screams filled the air, and with them, the monster's cruelty showed. It opened its mouth in a disgusting grin. It howled in delight, watching as my brother bled out. Saliva dripped from its mouth, landing on his face. Skin sizzled and burned. The already half-dead brother screamed at a pitch I didn't know a person could reach. Black bubbles formed on his face, blisters rose, and his skin boiled. The black saliva dug deep, melting muscle and exposing bone. His eyes popped open as the smell of burnt flesh ploughed the air. It cut through him without mercy, caving in his skull and finally putting an end to his torment. What remained was a bubbling, tar-covered mass of blood, skin, bone, and brain. The monster gargled a noise and moved on to find its next prey. My sister huffed and puffed as she ran. The strain of carrying me was taking a toll on her body. She gasped for air but didn't falter. She sprinted in an unknown direction, searching for anything that could protect us from the monsters. All around us, the beasts crashed into the ground, announcing their arrival with screeches of terror. My siblings were massacred in every manner imaginable. One, running just a few meters behind us, was swept into the air, only to be pounced on by 4 of the creatures. They scratched and pulled at her limbs. Her legs snapped, her arms folded in unnatural directions. The sounds of cracking and tearing emanated from her body. The monsters pulled until her body gave out. All 4 limbs popped out of their sockets. Thin skin tore at the seams, and eventually they were completely severed. Her screams were deafening but soon drowned out as a monster clamped its jaws over her head. Its wings flapped as it pulled with tremendous force. Her neck snapped, veins popping as blood spilled into the air, more and more squirting with each violent tug. Her neck elongated and stretched. Sizzling came from inside the beast's jaws, and with one final pull, her head detached from her body. The spine twisted and tore through skin as it was dragged out alongside her skull. Others died with more mercy, crushed beneath a descending beast. Wet puddles of blood and guts were left on the ground where they once stood. The monster, after realizing its mistake, seemed almost to pout before becoming distracted by more food nearby. I watched in terror because it was all I could do. Bumping up and down, my head began to spin. My sister ran faster, the sounds of death pumped adrenaline through her body. Behind us, the world shook once again as one of the beasts landed, its broken wings kicking up a cloud of dust. It roared, its trunk sniffing in our direction. It stood still for just a moment before moving toward us. This one stood on 2 legs, running awkwardly. 2 razor-sharp claws hung at the end of its abnormally long arms. A crooked smile stretched across its distorted face, black tar dripping from its mouth. My breathing was shallow, and the creature's speed was absurd. My sister was running at full speed, yet the monster was still gaining. My mind went blank. We were really going to die here. We survived an ocean of terror only to face these monsters. Maybe we truly weren't meant to survive. The beast drew closer. saliva pouring as it hungered to devour us. "Sister, drop me." She looked down at me, her face contorting in pain. Tears ran down her face. "It's the only way." I placed my hand on her smooth cheek, wiping away her tears. "It's okay, I'll be okay." I'm lying, I know that, she knows that, but it's all I can do. I'm slowing her down, and I know she can survive if she lets me go. "Please don't make me do this," she cried. I laughed a broken laugh. "I'm sorry." She looked into my eyes, then at the ground, a small crevice, an entrance that could only fit someone my size or smaller. I saw the hole and looked at her in shock. "No, don't do this," I screamed. Her eyes glistened, tears leaking from the corners. And she smiled, her beautiful smile, her white-toothed smile, her dark-lipped smile, her large, dimpled smile. Then she looked away and dropped me into the hole. Darkness engulfed me. I heard her screams, and the ground above shook as the monster raced over the opening. I fell deeper into the blackness of the cave. My legs snapped as it hit the wall. I struck one ledge after another, scratching at each one, trying to hold on. My fingers bled. I needed to get up. I needed to save her, but all I did was fall deeper into the abyss. I bashed against the walls, the force sending shockwaves through my body. I screamed as I kept falling. Tears raced down my face as I fought to grab onto something. I saw another ledge ahead and tried to avoid landing on my leg, but I only managed to hit the rock head first. My eyes rolled back, everything blurred. I couldn't feel my body. My movements slowed, then stopped. My ears rang. And everything went black. Chapter 3: Desperation. I drifted between consciousness and sleep. Blood seeped into the corners of my vision. My body was sore, the rock below straining my muscles. A haze clouded my mind, and my sight was a blur of blood and darkness. Thoughts came and went, visions of my sisters and brothers and how they died so horribly. Was I the only one who survived? Am I alone? The ground still shook from the raging monsters above, but the screams had stopped long ago. The cave was eerily quiet. Only once in a while would a distant screech break the silence. Lying on the rock, I sobbed quietly, my body damaged and my mind broken. A puddle of blood formed beneath me, but I couldn't move. Every slight movement was pure agony. I could feel my body inching toward failure with every breath. The rock I lay on protruded from the wall. Below me, there was nothing but darkness. The drop promised certain death. On one side only was there an entrance that would lead deeper into the cave. My broken leg dangled over the ledge. The pain there was non-existent. I couldn't feel anything below my knee. Too bad everything else hurt. My sobs turned into broken laughs. Maybe I should just fall and let this torture end. I rolled closer to the edge. My pearl-white hair spilled into the darkness below. My heart rate increased, my breathing grew shallow, and my hands trembled. I pushed with all my might, trying to roll once more so I could finally rest. The rock beneath me trembled as I shoved against it. A piece of stone broke off and fell. Blood boiled in my veins, and I flinched in fright. I couldn't do it. I wasn't strong enough to end my own life. What a pity. Was I really scared to die, after all I had been through? I looked up at the cave roof. The hole I had fallen through glowed faintly red. Stalactites hung from the ceiling, sharp enough to pierce straight through me. I wished they would. I wished something would kill me, because I couldn't do it myself. I cannot die without putting up a fight. I don't know how long I had been in the cave, hours, maybe days. I'm not sure. Time mixed with my despair. The screeches from above had stopped. The silence was maddening. My mouth was hoarse, my throat dry, and my stomach rumbled. I was dying, yet I couldn't even stand. I couldn't help myself. Standing was impossible. All I could do was drag myself forward with my arms. The hard rock beneath me began to feel almost comfortable. I was in so much pain, but it no longer hurt. I had grown used to it. The entrance I had fallen through was too high to reach, and below me the cave stretched endlessly. I couldn't see the bottom. There was only one way to go. I looked into the darkness of the passage before me. I had to see what lay beyond. It was my only option. I dug my nails into the ground and pulled myself deeper into the cave. Blood trailed behind me, seeping from my body. It hurt, but I didn't mind. I've experienced worse. Light was non-existent, yet I wasn't completely blind. Everything was dark, but I could still see a few meters ahead. The cave descended endlessly, with no end in sight. I struggled forward, dragging myself deeper. I had no idea what I was searching for. Anything would suffice. I needed something. My broken leg scraped against the floor as I dragged it, bleeding each time it rubbed against the stone. I could feel the blood loss beginning to take hold. Please, not yet. Let me go a little farther. I pulled with all I had, grasping at the floor and using the last of my strength. The blood at the corners of my eyes began to turn black, and my vision blurred once again. My head slumped and hit the ground. My arms stopped pulling. My momentum was completely halted. My mind fogged, and my breathing grew shallow. My eyes felt like iron. I fought with everything I had to hold them open. I'm losing consciousness. I'm scared. Will I wake up if I pass out now? Or will I rest forever? I coughed, blood spewing from my mouth, and the world felt as if it were slowing down. Visions of my short life flashed through my tired mind. I saw my bull brother, my dark sister. I saw the hope hidden behind their eyes. I saw the sister whose hope I ripped away with my own hands, the life I had stolen. I saw my dog brother and how he just wanted to die. He must have felt the same way I do now, begging for death. No, I don't want to die. I'm not like him. I want to live for the people who didn't get that chance. I want to grow stronger so I can protect the ones who are weak. I want to live. I was shivering, goosebumps prickled across my skin. I want to live, but I'm so tired. I need to rest. Maybe a few minutes will help. My head sank into the ground, and my eyes finally shut. Darkness overtook my vision, and I felt myself drifting into a deep sleep. My mind began to fade. My body felt numb. The pain was disappearing. Then, as the darkness engulfed me, a fire ignited in my already injured leg. It burned. The pain was unbearable, but I didn't move. I don't want to move. I want to sleep. Around me, something scurried through the dark. The sound it made was like sloshing through water. How annoying. Just let me sleep. I turned my head away from the noise, trying to drift off once again. Suddenly, the burning pain spread into my back. My eyes snapped open and I screamed. Fuck off. Just go away. I rolled onto my side, sending the creature fleeing. My hand reached toward the new pain in my back. A sharp bolt shot through my body when I made contact. When I pulled my hand away, it was covered in my flesh, rotten, black flesh. My heart skipped a beat. The smell was terrible. The sight is grotesque. I remembered the first jolt of pain and looked down at my leg. It was oozing pus, with corroded skin surrounding 2 new small puncture wounds. I felt something move in my leg, the dark skin expanding with each second that passed. The substance was flowing through my veins, corrupting my blood. I looked at my thighs. My veins were bulging, and black skin was starting to form along them. My leg spasmed, and something horrid appeared beneath the skin. A bump began to grow from where the wound originated, a black, gooey bump. It grew to 1 inch in diameter before it began moving. The feeling of something moving inside my body was horrific. I saw it squirm as it forced its way through my leg, moving closer to my torso. My stomach dropped at the sight. The bump mixed with the smell made me nauseous, and I grew dizzy from the pain. I heaved, but nothing came out. My stomach contorted and rumbled. I was starving, too hungry to vomit. The pain was incredible. The bump moved, and I felt it bite into my quad. More corroded skin formed where it bit me. I could feel it pumping a burning substance directly into my muscle. I screamed in agony. I watched as my skin bubbled and began to burn. My entire leg felt as if it were being burned through. It dug into my thigh, tunneling deeper. The pain was so intense it nearly made me pass out. I screamed in a broken cacophony as I felt another creature begin burrowing into my back, where I had been bitten the second time. I rolled on the ground, spasming from the constant burning. The monsters were eating away at me. I fought with everything I had to sit up. My thigh had turned completely black, with a dark hole at its center. My pale skin was replaced with bubbling, black blisters. I gagged as I lowered my eye toward the wound, staring into my own muscle. Inside the hole was something horrific. A living blob of moving flesh writhed within my body. Its form was circular, its skin bubbling and shifting, a lump of deep, dark, burning flesh. It was absorbing me as it corroded my muscles. It had 7 legs, each ending in a sharp talon. The legs pierced my flesh, clinging to my muscle fibers. I watched as an 8th leg formed when a piece of my blackened flesh was absorbed. Its face was small but horrid, with drooping skin and a deformed mouth. Bulging eyes sprawled across its body. They blinked in unison as it bit into me, its dark fangs sinking in. It was disgusting. It was unbearable. I could feel the poison beginning to spread throughout my body. It was ruining me, expanding at a terrifying rate. I'm going to die. I'm going to be absorbed by these monsters. They are going to devour me piece by piece. I pulled away from the hole. My head throbbed. I brought my hands to it, pulling at my hair, trying to relieve the pain. My vision began to go black, dark spots clouding my sight. My face burned, and I coughed up a black, viscous liquid. The veins on my hands bulged. One even split my skin as it burst from the pressure, black blood pouring from the opening. I felt the holes in my back, and thigh widen as more of my flesh was absorbed by the creatures. They are eating me. I fell back onto my side. Please, stop. It hurts. I cried, black tears running down my cheeks. I coughed, causing more black blood to spew from my mouth. Get out! Get out! I screamed as I felt the monsters dig deeper, puncturing bone. I needed to get them out. I brought my hand to my thigh. My hands were quivering, and my vision had nearly gone completely dark, even though my eyes were wide open. I lowered my hand into the hole. My skin was tender and rough, falling apart at the slightest touch. I winced, biting down on my tongue until it bled deep black blood. I dug my hand deeper into my own thigh, the wound contorting as I forced my way inside. I reached in, grasping at the creature within. A terrible scream ripped through the air. The monster's talons dug deeper into my leg, curving upward and embedding themselves further into my ruined flesh. I felt my hand burn as I grasped it. I pulled, and it ripped apart my muscle as it held on. Enraged, it tore its fangs from my thigh and pierced my hand instead. I felt my hand begin to fall apart, but I did not falter. I squeezed, feeling its slimy body ooze fluid between my fingers. I pulled harder. The tension gave way. Its legs snapped, the talons severing from its body. The talons remained lodged in my leg, but the creature did not. I ripped it free and brought the injured monster to my face. It pulled its fangs from my hand and hissed, trembling as it did. Each leg bled. Fear showed behind the many eyes scattered across its body. Screaming, I slammed it into the ground. It screeched. I raised my arm and brought it down again. 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 I poured more strength into each blow until it no longer moved. Its black body lay broken on the rocky floor. Guts and shredded flesh smeared across the stone. The stench of rotting meat hung in the air. I looked at its corpse, then reached toward my back. It's your friend's turn." I repeated the process, using my left hand. My right hand had been reduced to a bubbling, ruined mess after killing the first. When I tore the second creature from my body, I granted it the same fate as its brother, pulverizing it against the cave floor until it stopped moving. I had done it. I killed them. I smiled a broken, trembling smile, but my body had already taken the brunt of the poison. Almost all of it was blackened and burned. My consciousness flickered. My strength was fading. I was going to die. At least I died fighting. At least I took them with me. At least. I crumpled to the floor, my head landing beside one of the corpses. Its bubbling flesh disgusted me. The sight made me want to vomit. I couldn't believe that thing had been inside me. I laughed, a laugh that felt like it tore something loose in my chest. Corrupted blood spilled from my orifices. Inside, I was ravaged. The poison that remained was still eating away at what little was left of me. I sighed and closed my eyes, drifting toward a forever sleep. In my mind, there was silence. No pain, no suffering. A void surrounded me. But something else was there. A figure stood above me, a figure of pure crimson. Its eyes were black, empty of emotion. Its mouth moved, but no sound came out. I stared at it. It stared back. Its lips moved again. This time, I heard it. Not in my ears. In my heart. Devour. Chapter 4. Devour. My eyes snapped open, heavy as iron, but open. Only specks of vision remained, the rest was clouded in darkness. The bubbling, squished remains of one of the creatures rested in front of my face. The smell was rancid. The stench alone burned my nose, or what was left of it. I wasn't even sure if I still had one. My face felt charred, black goop dripping onto the ground beneath me. My eyes bulged, nearly slipping from their sockets. My ears rang, and every sound around me was warped and distorted. The lump of decayed flesh had dark eyes plastered all over it. They stared at me. Its red pupils didn't move. It never blinked. It was dead. A heavy breath escaped my mouth, relief washing over me. I had killed it, but I hadn't fared well against the beast. It had taken its toll. I could feel my heart slowing, matching the rhythm of the one that vibrated through the ground. Bewdump, bewdump, bewdump. 3 seconds between each beat. Definitely not survivable. I lay there, taking in the cave around me, the jagged spikes lining the walls and ceiling, the uneven stone beneath my ruined body. The steady thumping of that distant drum sent vibrations through the cavern, making my destroyed frame tremble. The air was thick with blood and decay, burning my lungs with every shallow breath. Somewhere nearby, something scurried, the creature that had first bitten me, that had injected those monsters inside me. A shiver crawled through what remained of my spine. I closed my eyes. My ruined hands clasped together in prayer, begging whatever lurked in the dark to leave me alone, to let me rest, to let me die in peace. The constant pain had numbed my mind and body. I had grown used to the torture. It no longer even felt like I was melting alive. I tried to laugh, but only a hushed gurgle escaped. I was amused. Amused that I had been corroded so completely that my nerves had been burned away. There was nothing left to hurt. I was being reduced to a lump of flesh, just like the creature that had formed from my ruined matter. Will I turn into something like that? Will a seed be planted in my rotting corpse, sprouting into a horrid beast of death and pain? The thought terrified me. I imagine myself inflicting the same agony on the next poor brother or sister who stumbled into this accursed cave, implanting them with a monster that would eat them from the inside out. Would I still be conscious? Could I control myself? Or would I be lost to instinct? That would be a fate worse than death. Even if the risk is small, I cannot allow it. I will not become one of them. I have to do something. They cannot devour me, and I cannot be taken over. I will fight for my life, no matter how much I suffer. Against stone. The noise was close enough for me to tell it was circling me, yet far enough away that I couldn't see what was making it. I think it was trying to decide whether I was dead or alive. I was close, but death hadn't taken me yet. It didn't know that. All it had seen was me destroying the beasts that had sprouted from my body and then collapsing onto the ground. It must have been waiting, testing my strength and resolve. I could barely move. I don't doubt its weariness. If I had watched something brutally slaughter others like me, I would hesitate to approach as well. But if survival meant risking everything, I wouldn't hesitate. A few minutes passed and the grinding grew louder. The creature was growing impatient. I hadn't moved a muscle. My body was too ruined to do anything but breathe. I could move if I forced myself to, but I doubt I could go far. My best option was to remain still and rest. I could barely turn my head. The sounds of the monster were clearer now, but I couldn't tell which direction they came from. They seemed to surround me. Was it truly that fast? Or were my ears so damaged that they twisted the sound, distorting my sense of where it was? The screeching noise made my head spin. I searched for the beast, trying to pinpoint its location. The sound was all I had, but my perception of it was ruined. I scanned my surroundings, searching for its figure, yet darkness swallowed everything beyond a few meters. The sound began to fade, disappearing altogether. Then a small tapping echoed from directly in front of me. Or at least, I think it was in front of me. From the darkness, a monster the size of a small boulder emerged. It had finally decided to show itself. Its size amplified its grotesque features. It resembled the beasts that had sprouted from inside me, but on a far larger scale. Its skin was liquid, webbed with dark veins that pumped black fluid through its body. The veins bulged, the skin cracking along their paths. Eyes covered its form, dark with red pupils burning at their centers. When one blinked, they all blinked. Red irises examined my broken body. It clicked one of its legs against the stone and began moving toward me. Its body was plump, a ball of distorted black flesh. It had 8 legs, each bending at unnatural, impossible angles. The tips were sharp, sharper than steel, black in color with cracks lining their surface. Beneath it, bone splintered. My bone. The white fragments from my shattered leg had turned completely black. The monster did not walk on iron. It walked on decayed bone. With each step, its talons left holes in the corroded stone. As it drew closer, its face split open, revealing 2 massive fangs. The flesh peeled to the sides, held together only by rotted tendons. Black blood dripped to the ground, hissing as it landed. It stopped a few feet away. Gurgling, choking sounds leaked from its deformed mouth. Sweat trickled down my burned brow. Fear rooted itself deep within me. I could barely move, and even if I could, what chance did I have? Monsters 5 times smaller than this had nearly killed me. How could I win against this? My mind raced. I didn't want to die. But how could I survive? The situation was dire. No escape, no strength, no help. My eyes darted around the cave, searching for anything that might give me a chance. There was nothing but darkness and stone. The only living creatures were the monster and me, separated by barely more than a foot. Nothing else. I looked back up at it, locking eyes with one of its many. I chose the one embedded in its forehead, the one that seemed to glow brighter than the rest. I forced myself to calm down. I had already defied death more than once. If this was where I died, so be it. I gargled through ruined lungs and stared daggers into that glowing eye. Rage burned behind my corroded vision. My fear twisted into fire, feeding my fury. I lowered my gaze from the towering beast. My eyes drifted to the corpse of the creature that had tried to devour me. The one that almost succeeded. This bubbling mass of decaying flesh had tried to melt my organs into liquid. It had tried to burn me to the bone. It had tried to end my fragile, precious life. But in the end, it was the one who died. And now, it would be the one devoured. The ground beneath me shook. The drums were beginning to beat faster once again. Badump, badump, badump. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. The beat sped up, then stopped abruptly. I braced myself as the monster gargled in frustration. I dug my melted fingers into the stone, hardening my posture against what was coming. I pulled the corpse of the smaller creature into my embrace, just as the cave began to shake violently. Rocks crumbled. Stalagmites snapped and fell from the ceiling. Pebbles and dust erupted from the ground, blinding me further. I rubbed at my eyes, dark tears forming at the corners. When I forced them open again, they burned, irritated but still functional. Through the haze, I watched the creature plunge its talons into the ground, desperately trying to steady itself. It dug deep, its massive body trembling as the quake intensified. Its drooping face snapped upward, reattaching as it pulled its flesh tight, hiding its exposed forehead and shifting eyes. The tremors worsened. The world convulsed. The monster's many eyes widened as the cave shuddered around us. Its talons burrowed deeper, clinging with everything it had. Yet with each violent jolt, its body was rocked upward, its claws tearing loose from the stone before slamming back down again. Rocks battered its face but caused it no harm. While the monster struggled to hold its ground, I fared much worse. The first quake had already thrown me into the air, sending my broken body crashing against the stone. Before I could even settle, another tremor launched me again. I struck the ground, then lifted once more. I was launched like that many more times while also being struck with stray stones. Fortunately, I had just barely avoided being impaled by a stalagmite that fell from the roof. If I had been a few feet to the right, my head would have been crushed flat. It didn't hurt anymore, but it made moving my ruined muscles even harder. I was thrown across the cave, holding onto the corpse of the smaller beast with everything I had. The larger beast held its ground, unmoving from where it had planted its talons. The tremors began to slow, and the cave started to calm. I lay against the cave wall, legs twisted, skin ripped. Rocks lodged themselves inside my melted flesh. All sight in my right eye was gone. Below me, resting on my legs, lay my eye. The muscles holding it in had failed, dislodging it along with the optic nerve. Black blood stained my cheek, seeping from where my eye used to be. I brought my hand to my head, my fingers slipping into the empty socket. When I removed them, I watched as blood dripped from my fingers onto my lap. The monster stood a few meters away, its disgusting face shriveled into a grin, exposing its rotted black teeth. It looked at me, then gargled before splitting in half and falling to its side once again. It clattered its talons against each other, sharpening the edges. It began taking slow, agonizing steps forward. I watched it approach, waiting for it to strike. Its talons scraped at my legs, absorbing fallen flesh and blood. It loomed above me, its lucid face lowering onto my shoulders. Fangs dripped with saliva, the substance falling onto me and melting through more of my flesh. I looked up at it, my rage still brewing within me. I showed it no fear, no pain, only rage. It hissed at me, displeasure seeping from its throat. Why isn't it attacking? Is it toying with me? It sucked in air, then exhaled into my face. Its rotten breath made me gag and shudder. The excruciating stench was unbearable. On its forehead, its eye tightened and began to bulge. From within, something pushed outward. I could hear it squishing and tearing. The skin split open, and from inside, a small larva appeared. It squirmed down the creature's dark flesh, climbing onto its fangs. It was pure white, with black veins webbing across its body. A single orphix sat at its front, dripping pitch-black, corrosive blood. I watched as its own fluids corroded its skin, turning its flawless white membrane into a dark layer of rot. My face shriveled as I realized what it was about to do. It was trying to use me as fertilizer to grow more of its kind. It wanted to devour me. But I won't let it. From behind my back, I brought forth the creature I had killed. The monster gargled in confusion, not understanding what I was doing. When it realized it was the corpse of its own species, it hissed in anger. It raised its fangs and pierced my legs with its talons. Its eyes burned with fury. I flinched, but did not stop. I lifted the body higher. Each inch felt like lifting 100 tons. I kept going as it wound up to strike. Looking down at the lump of flesh, my gut twisted as I comprehended what I was about to do. I brought it to my mouth and bit as it tightened its talons and started to drop its fangs. It burned. My mouth began to steam as I chewed. It tasted like death, then like nothing as my tongue and teeth dissolved. I kept shoving it in, finally swallowing the last of the beast. My throat burned, and I felt as if my stomach would tear open. The beast above me halted its attack, staring at me, dumbfounded. Blood dripped from my mouth. My lips began to split and crack. I looked into its foremost eye. In its reflection was a smile. Chapter 5, Survival. The acid burned through my mouth, but all I could do was grin as I watched the monster halt its attack. Yes, it hurt, but it was worth it. Worth it to see genuine horror plastered across the beast's face. I could feel the liquid digging into my flesh, its corrosive properties already chipping away at my jaw. My grin looked more like a waterfall of liquid flesh dripping from my mouth. I could feel my throat beginning to burn as the beast's flesh made its way down into my stomach. It felt as if I were being choked from the inside. Pieces of burnt and rotten flesh getting caught and lodged in holes that weren't supposed to exist in my neck. The beast above me took a few steps back. It seemed to have decided to wait for me to perish on my own before infecting me. A dead target is easier. I stared at the beast with my singular eye. Contempt filled my mind as the beast watched me suffer. The creature was enjoying watching me die a slow, miserable death. My vision blurred in my remaining eye as the darkness around me enveloped my mind and soul. I awoke in a place of complete darkness. I was no longer in the cave. I could feel that my eye was back and my body had healed. There was no pain, no injury. I was fine. Where was I? How had I been healed? Other than me, there was one other person in the darkness. In front of me stood the red figure I had seen before. It glowed faintly. Its pitch-black eyes and flawless red skin stood out amid the endless darkness. He, or she, it was hard to tell, had dark, stone-like horns that reflected a light that did not exist here. Their skin seemed smooth, yet also scaly. I watched the figure closely. Its form seemed to shift depending on how I viewed it. All the figure did was stare. It stared into my very soul, and what lay behind its eyes was terrifying. I could sense pain and destruction, the feeling of absolute dread. The creature was afraid of something. Its face distorted into an awful shape as a terrible scream tore from its mouth. The screech rang through the darkness, echoing across the endless expanse. I covered my ears as the noise pierced my brain, making them feel as if they were going to explode. The creature extended its hand, pointing at me. Wait. No, it wasn't pointing at me. It was pointing at something behind where I stood. I turned my head at an unnatural speed, straining my neck to see what the figure was looking at. I searched the darkness, and in the distance, I saw something standing still. I couldn't make out what it was, but it shone in the dark with a radiant red, brighter than even the figure in front of me. Looking back at the red-skinned person, I saw it shaking uncontrollably. Its horrid screams had stopped, but its rotten teeth chattered while crimson tears flowed from its black eyes. I turned again and saw that the distant figure had moved closer. It seemed to have traveled an unfathomable distance in an instant. It was still far away, but some features were now visible. Long white hair fell well below its shoulders. Pale skin glistened and sparkled. Its red glow blazed with even more ferocity than before, illuminating even the darkness we dwelled in. I stood still, keeping my eyes on the beautiful figure in the distance. It did not move, not even a sway. It only stood there, looking toward me. Behind me, the red-skinned figure sobbed. The clattering of its teeth filled the silence of the void. "No, it cannot be," the red figure shouted in a distorted voice. "How could you possibly have followed me to this place?" The white-haired person did not move. "I will not allow this. Not after what you have done," the red figure continued. "This is the end before your beginning," it said, suddenly appearing before me. Its right hand shot up and wrapped around my neck. I was lifted off the imaginary ground, my throat tightening. I kicked and gasped, trying to escape the red-skinned monster. I hit its chiseled abs, but even kicking with all my might, it did not flinch. I scratched at its face, clawing at anything that might make it let go. It was useless. My efforts only made its grip tighten. Tears ran down my face as I wheezed, being choked. I looked behind it, searching for the figure from before. She hadn't moved from where she stood. She was still watching everything unfold. I don't know if she could see my face or hear my voice, but I begged. I pleaded. My eyes asked for help, and I managed to choke out a few words. "PL, please save me." Tears flowed freely. I thought I had accepted death, but I was still afraid. "I don't want to die. Not yet." A flash of red light blinded me as the glowing figure in the distance suddenly disappeared. The red-skinned creature flinched, releasing its grip. It covered its eyes, screaming in agony. I dropped to my knees, gasping for air. I stayed still, regaining my composure but also being too scared, not daring to look behind me at the source of the light. The red monster began to resist the glow and grabbed me again. It seized me by the hair, yanking me backward. I yelped as strands tore from my scalp. It brought its nails to my neck, and before my eyes they extended and sharpened. The cold, black tips pressed against my skin, drawing blood with the slightest touch. "Move, and I'll kill her," the red creature said. I froze, ensnared and completely under its control. The white-haired person now stood only a few meters away. It was a girl with elegant, flowing white hair and beautiful curves. She looked remarkably like me, from her body shape to the exact color of her hair. But her face was hidden behind a fox-like mask. The mask bore a long black smile near the bottom, with two pointed fangs protruding from it. It was outlined in gold, except for the top, which was completely golden. The mask's face was white, with pale stripes along the cheeks. In the center were two eye holes. I couldn't see her real eyes. Within those openings, there was only darkness. I couldn't make out any features above her neck, but below was clear. She was clothed, unlike me, who had been naked this entire time. She wore a well-made dark kimono that reached her ankles, engraved with intricate floral designs winding across the fabric. Two red scarves wrapped around her waist, securing them in place. On her feet were fine geta and soft socks. Her hair was tied into a neat bun, held in place by a majestic hairpin. Her hands rested calmly at her sides. On her left wrist, she wore a glove made of what looked like hardened leather, covering only that portion of her arm. The most interesting part of her was not her outfit. Though it was stunning, what truly caught my eye was what rested at her right waist. She carried a sword. Its sheath was crimson, with gold streaks running down its side. The hilt was pitch black, with golden stones embedded within it. She took a step forward, and as she did, I felt the monster's claw dig deeper into my neck. I said, "Don't move." The red-skinned figure backed away slightly. "You are strong, but in here, your power is suppressed, isn't it?" Laughter erupted above me, sending jolts through my body as its amusement caused its nails to grind deeper into my flesh. The woman did not move. She stood before us as the red-skinned beast laughed. The creature's hand slid to the back of my neck as it lifted me again. Kicking and struggling changed nothing. Its grip remained firm against my throat. In front of me, the beautiful woman shifted slightly, her hand moving toward her blade. "I swear it upon my name, Oroba's, upon my standing as a demon king. I will not allow this traitor to survive." The red demon's voice boomed. Echoes rippled through the darkness, and the crimson glow surrounding Oroba's intensified. The king drew back his arm while holding my body aloft. A flash of light streaked toward me as the woman unsheathed her blade. She cast the master-crafted sheath aside. It struck the dark floor, sliding before dissolving into black smoke and vanishing from the physical realm. The woman dashed forward at a speed I could barely comprehend, gripping her weapon with both hands. It was a katana. The blade was as dark as the void itself, yet within it, millions of tiny lights flickered. It pierced through Orobas's red aura, emitting a radiance of its own, a light filled with a spectrum of colors. Blue, white, red, purple, orange, even black. Too slow. His arm thrust into my back. Pain exploded through my body. My vision dimmed. Blood splattered from my mouth onto the floor. Below me, I saw the king's hand, completely impaled through my stomach. In his grasp were my intestines. Blood poured from the wound like a waterfall. I looked at the woman, who had frozen for a fraction of a second, then back at the demon king. A smirk stretched across his face. He tossed me aside, ripping his hand free from my torso. He brought my intestines to his mouth and bit down. "I love the taste of young demon, don't you?" The woman did not answer. Instead, she dashed toward me. I was bleeding out, but I was not dead. She loomed over me, the black sockets of her mask staring into my eyes. She knelt, placing her hand over the gaping hole in my abdomen. A brilliant light manifested from her palm. A strange warmth spread through me, sending shivers down my spine. I reached toward my wound. The bleeding had stopped. The pain was manageable. But a piece of me was still missing. "You're only delaying the inevitable. She will still die from that injury," the red demon chuckled. "I allowed you that much so she can watch what I am about to do to you." The king stood confidently now, its earlier fear completely gone. Its back began to bubble, skin split and tore. From the ruptured flesh, massive bone wings erupted, dragging muscle and blood with them. The king did not react to the agony. Its arms ripped open, revealing elongated, razor-sharp blades. Its horns grew larger, twisting upward. Its face warped as enormous fangs extended from its mouth. "Here you are nothing, and I am complete," the demon roared, lunging at the woman. Both arm blades crashed down in an instant. She raised her katana to meet the strike. Clang! Her blade moved like water, deflecting the attack with perfect precision, striking Orobas's weapons at the exact angle to knock him off balance. She pivoted to the side as his redirected blades plunged into the dark floor, sending violent shockwaves through the air and ground. The void trembled. The blast hurled her backward. She flipped gracefully through the air, her kimono flowing behind her, and landed lightly. She lowered into a stance, blade angled down behind her. The katana shimmered in the darkness, its colors rippling like paint across an empty canvas. Silence fell. The two powerhouses faced one another, neither giving breath nor ground. She stepped forward. The demon king grunted, bracing himself. In an instant, Light exploded across the battlefield, a streak of rainbow brilliance. The only sound was the rapid clatter of her geta against the dark floor as she surged forward. Wind burst outward from her movement. Her katana rose from below her waist to above her head, poised for a downward strike. She began her descent. Orobas lifted both blades to block. At the last possible moment, she twisted her wrists, turning the katana. The downward strike became a horizontal slash. A feint. Orobas reacted too late. He backstepped desperately as her blade carved through the air, barely missing its target. His wings flapped violently, propelling him farther away. Yet a deep gash tore open across his chest. Impossible! Orobas shouted as the wound sealed itself almost instantly. His expression darkened. An invisible extended slash. How disgraceful. Orobas beat his wings and rose into the sky. Your sword is all you have. He circled her from above, wings generating violent gusts. With each powerful flap, blades of compressed wind shot toward her. She dashed again, weaving through the battlefield to evade the slicing currents. The attacks moved faster than sound. One struck the ground just ahead of her, detonating with enough force to send her tumbling. She landed on one knee, driving her sword into the ground to steady herself. Using it as leverage, she rose again. More wind shrieked toward her. Her white hair had fallen loose from its bun, strands whipping wildly across her face. Her arms trembled as she raised her sword above her head, angling it toward the incoming barrage. The blade's glow intensified. The wind blades descended relentlessly. Steel met storm. The deafening clash of her katana against the raging wind made my ears ring. Each impact forced her back a step, but none broke her guard. She tilted her blade, redirecting one shrieking gust into the ground. Another followed, she deflected it as well. You can't stop them all, Orobas laughed, unleashing a torrent of wind strikes. She did not retreat. Instead, she stepped forward, bending her knees, bracing as the rain of destruction fell upon her. My eyes struggled to track the speed of the wind, but from the shock waves each strike created, I knew that even one carried enough power to split a boulder in half. And what astonished me most was that she never once considered dodging. She drove her sword forward toward the incoming wind blades. A dazzling light blasted from where she stood. The rainbow of colors blinded me, blocking my vision of the fight. All I could do was listen. The sound of destruction filled the abyss. Metal collided with air, sending whirlwinds in every direction. I felt the sharp winds cut into my skin, leaving small drops of blood to slide down my barren body. Just give up and perish, the Demon King shouted, rage filling his voice as he continued to rain down wind slashes. With each flap of his wings, a new blade formed. Orobas sent down dozens of them, ensuring absolute destruction. The king heaved as he began to descend from the sky, fumbling slightly as he touched down. The light from where the woman stood began to dwindle, the rainbow being absorbed back into its center. As the glow retracted, it revealed the aftermath of the barrage. At the center of a massive crater, the woman stood tall. Fractured streaks of rainbow light bent and shimmered, filling the dark pit carved by the wind blades. Her kimono had been torn and slashed, revealing her pale skin. Blood dripped from numerous small wounds along her body, pooling beneath her feet. Her golden fox mask was cracked, pieces breaking away from its surface. Her breathing was ragged. So was the king's. She looked toward Orobas, who had begun to rise into the air once more. How did you survive all that? The king demanded, his eyes wide, his hands trembling with fury. I didn't even sense any magic. Did you stop them all with just your sword? The question lingered in the air. Answer me, Orobas roared. Rage echoed in his voice as he cursed and hurled insults at her. The woman did not react. Instead, she steadied her breathing and prepared herself once more. Fine, then. I will burn you until there's nothing left. I will burn your blood until it boils. I'll burn your body until nothing remains but ash. I'll even burn your very soul so that you can never find peace. The Demon King's face began to distort and split. The sound of muscles tearing and bones snapping filled my ears. I watched as his features elongated, stretching forward into a lizard-like shape. Blood flowed from his mouth as red scales spread across his skin, forming a hardened pattern over his body. His bone wings creaked as thin membranes stretched between them, filling the hollow gaps. Orobas tilted his head back and roared. The sound was so deafening that I had to cover my ears. In this new form, the king looked down upon the battered, white-haired woman. His draconic wings flapped powerfully, propelling him forward. The steadied her feet as the Demon King flew toward her. Orobas charged and rammed into her. She tried to dodge, but he was too fast. She was struck, though she managed to bring her sword up in time to defend herself. Even so, the impact was overwhelming. Despite her guard, she was launched dozens of meters away. She tumbled across the ground before finally coming to a stop. Orobas took to the air again, racing toward her once more. Where I lay, I could feel my mind beginning to weaken. The hole in my body, though partially healed, was taking its toll. The darkness around me felt strangely calming. It made me want to close my eyes. But I had to stay awake. I needed to see what happened. Forcing my vision back to the battlefield, I watched as Orobas closed the distance between them. The king hovered above the woman. Red saliva dripped from its mouth. When it touched the dark floor, a sizzling sound erupted. The Demon King roared as it brought its head back. Its stomach began to expand, and light began to glow from its underbelly. Its nostrils flared, dark smoke escaping. From Orobas's jaws, fire poured down upon the white-haired woman. She dashed to the side, narrowly avoiding the flames. The Demon King did not stop its onslaught, continuing to fire upon her. She kept dodging, but was eventually struck in the side by the scorching flames. She flinched as more fire rained down, her hip charred a deep black. The smell of burning flesh filled the air as she rolled away from the incoming fire. The woman panted. The fire finally stopped. The Demon King hovered above, looking down upon the injured woman. Roaring, it began to suck in all that was within a dozen meters of itself. Sweat dripped from my brow as the temperature in the void increased. My skin burned slightly from Orobas's presence alone. From where the king hovered, a giant sphere of molten plasma and lava began to form. The ball grew massive over a few seconds, matching the king's height and length. On the floor, the injured woman stood silently, staring into the ball of magma. Her outfit was ruined, all except for her mask, which stayed completely intact. Its gold surface reflected the sphere's bright orange glow, illuminating her figure. At her side, a golden light formed. Her sheath reformed. She brought her sword down and sheathed it completely. The blade's smooth shriek sent a shiver through me. With it, the rainbow light grew small, only shining slightly around her body. She brought her hand to her wrist, where she was burned. A slight golden glow sprouted before fading a second later. Her once burnt skin had returned to its normal pale shade. On her back, another light formed. From it, a quiver appeared. It held more than 24 arrows. She pulled an arrow from the quiver, rubbing its base. The arrow had a pure black shaft, with flaming red feathers lining the end. At the front, the metal was ignited in a dark black flame, which made the air itself boil. In her other hand, a majestic bow formed. It matched the arrows, with a deep black base and 2 burning red feathers lining its ends, but it had unique aspects as well. The black base had golden carvings that I could not make out. The gold seemed to move within the material itself, making the bow seem alive. From above, the flaming ball hovered, its dark orange color beginning to transform into a bright blue. Oroba's was focused on the creation of the magma sphere, but at the sight of the bow, its eyes widened. The Demon King roared as it prepared to launch death toward the woman. On the other side, the woman drew her arrow. The black flame at the end exploded, forming a wall of fire in front of her. The heat was immense, my already burnt skin beginning to bubble. The sphere and arrow sent shockwaves through the void. Their mere presence alone exerted immense pressure. I could feel myself being pushed down as the air started to take on weight. I could barely stay conscious. And the 2 powerhouses hadn't even released their attacks yet. I waited as Demon King Oroba's, and the white-haired woman charged up to deliver their attacks. Oroba's reeled back, bringing the flaming ball higher into the air. The king thrust forward, releasing its grip on the blue sphere. The woman watched the frenzied ball of magma race toward her as she pulled her arrow back. She held the string and arrow with 2 gentle fingers. Her movements were smooth and precise, stretching the glistening string to its limit. Her body glowed brighter. The lava sphere grew closer. Her fingers pulled away as she released the black flame arrow. White hair danced along her mask, and the 2 calamity-like attacks struck one another, enveloping the void in a blinding light.